Thanks, volumes. United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good, very good. Ms. Weiser, did you want to go over those?
I submitted them in writing to the clerk.
All right, I didn't get a revised version, so. Okay. Okay. So beyond the revisions submitted by Ms. Weiser earlier today, are there any other corrections to the minutes? Mrs. Sachs.
Thank you. Yes, I read it through again, and it was just a minor piece. When I had asked the mayor if an air quality test would be conducted by a certified industrial hygienist, he responded no. He said what the other part that Kelly, Mrs. Thomas said, but he said that as well. So I wanted the record to reflect that, and you could verify that in the recording.
Where in the minutes are we referring
to? During the council remarks.
Yeah, I didn't respond to any remarks in the council remarks.
You can hear it on the audio.
And I said that I was not responding to remarks on the council remarks, so that would
Yes,
not
you
be
did.
the correction.
And you also said no.
I'll have to go back. I'll ask for a motion to table the minutes then. Is there a motion to table the minutes? Because I'm going to need to go back and listen. I'll ask again for a motion to table the minutes of October 3rd, 2023. Excuse me, October 2nd, 2023. Okay, I'll move on to item 4 on the agenda. Additions or removals from the agenda and referrals to committee. Are there any additions or removals to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move on.
Are we going to entertain a motion to approve the minutes? Because that was on the topic, and you had asked for that ahead of Mrs. Sachs's remarks.
Yeah, I don't think there was any motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 2nd.
And I'll second.
Friendly amendment, which you add as amended, please.
Yes, as amended by Ms. Weiser's comments and revisions.
Okay, there is a motion to approve the
And Mrs.
minutes.
Sachs.
We have a motion.
And Mrs. Sachs,
Okay,
yes.
well, now we're back to this same point, which is that I have not had an opportunity to go back and, unlike the corrections that were submitted in writing earlier, I have not had an opportunity to go back and listen to a recording since this has been brought up in just the last few minutes with regard to what I supposedly said, when it is my recollection that I specifically said that I'm not going to be addressing in a back and forth manner comments made during council reports. I mean, I would also note from the minutes from this last meeting that my remark regarding referencing Dr. Evil and the Austin Powers movie in connection to Mr. Rock's corrections to the minutes, or actually Ms. Weiser's corrections to the minutes, were not noted. But, you know, that's not really material to the discussion. But this is a material matter. If you're going to say that I said something, which I don't believe I did, and you're going to refer to a recording, and it's my recollection, that what I said is that this is not a back and forth, these are your reports, I'm not here to answer questions, and that you're going to put words in my mouth and make that the record, that's wholly inappropriate. Mrs. Sachs.
Thank you. I had asked twice. The first time you said no, the second time you made that comment. So I'm not disputing that you made that comment. It's just, there was an addition.
Well, and I'm asking for the courtesy to go back and take a listen to the recording, which is why I've asked for a motion to table.
Excuse me, Ms. Thomas said something.
I will go back and listen. And
Could I revise my motion to reflect that contingent on Mrs. Sachs's revisions being correctly stated in the video and recording? So that we don't have to come back and report on this business again in 2 weeks.
That seems confusing to me.
All right, well, then my motion stays. Mayor does not get to, you have an opportunity to review minutes before they come to the council. The council approves minutes. The council reviews the minutes. It's the council meeting. You don't get a vote. Appreciate your concern. Let's move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I do get the opportunity to sign the minutes at the end here, and I do think it would be appropriate that I be afforded the opportunity to verify that this proposed last-minute change, that I get an opportunity to go back and listen to the recording before we go ahead and vote on these minutes. That's fine.
Mayor, we do a lot of amendments here on the floor of the minutes when the meeting starts, and they sometimes relate to things that other people have said. I've not heard anybody object until now. I don't think any of us mistrust one another to the point of thinking that we might not have actually listened or read through the minutes as they've been presented. I try to be very accurate in anything I say. I would hope we could begin to at least begin to trust one another.
Yeah, well, the thing here is that we have tabled minutes before to allow people to review. And also, most of the time when people are asking for corrections, they're asking for corrections about things that they themselves have said. I haven't made a request that we correct the minutes to reflect something I did or didn't say. So another member of the body has chosen to make a correction to say that I said something that I don't recall saying. And I think I should be afforded the opportunity to go back and listen for myself. For instance, you went ahead and made some corrections with respect to things that you said, and you wanted to make clear that you were the ones that said them. I think that's appropriate. And we also knew about this in advance, so we were able to check it to the degree that we wanted to.
Today, yes.
Today, yes.
Made other changes on the fly here, where I changed billions to millions.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I think we can reasonably work together with everybody.
Well, part of working together would be to afford me the courtesy to go back to listen to the recording about something that somebody is saying I said that I don't recall saying. And I think I should be afforded the opportunity to go back and listen. Mrs. Sachs.
Thank you. I would suggest that you listen to the MP3 recording because the video was corrupted. It totally went green when I was speaking, and my remarks were unintelligible and not understandable. So I don't know what happened, but they are on the recording. Thank you.
Okay, well, if everyone would be so kind then to move to table these minutes so that I can go back
motion on the floor
and motion table would take precedence, as we've done in other instances as recently as Planning Commission, allowing the entertainment of the motion table as a superseding motion when another motion is on the floor. So I would ask one more time, is there a motion to table the minutes of October 2nd, 2023? Very well. If these minutes pass, Mrs. Thomas, I want to make sure you give me a copy of the minutes. I will listen to the recording. If I believe the recording deviates, when I go to sign the minutes, I will interlineate the minutes and sign again what actually happened and refer back to the recording. The idea that this body is so unconcerned about the correctness of its record that it would not afford a fellow elected official the opportunity to review the record to ensure that it is correct before it is journalized is incomprehensible to me. So we have a motion on the floor to pass these minutes. We have a second. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Is there a discussion after?
No, Mrs.
Then
Thomas.
I have
will
a
call the roll.
question.
Okay, you have a point of order?
One
You have your point.
Point of order.
Well, she has the floor.
Thank you. And if it's correct, as I've asked you in the past in public meetings, but you have not, I would like an apology. Thank you.
Ms. Weiser, did you have anything?
Yeah.
Please go.
According to Robert's Rules of Order, to lay on the table enables the, and I'm quoting, enables the assembly to lay the pending question aside temporarily when something else of immediate urgency has arisen in such a way that there is no set time for taking up the matter again, but until the expiration of time limits, its consideration can be resumed.
I'm going to rule this as
with a majority.
because we have
What you
already,
state-
we don't have
point
a
of
motion to
order,
table. We
Mayor.
don't have a motion to table at this time.
Point
What
of
we have
order.
is a motion to pass the minutes. Mrs. Thomas, we call for the
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks,
Yes, the minutes, aye.
Mr. Cooney,
Abstain.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Ms. Marshall. Abstain. Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is the additions and removals from the agenda and referrals to committee. Are there any? Seeing none. Next is comments from the audience. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. You may approach the podium and state your name, address for the record, and take up to 5 minutes to address the city. Thank you.
Tina Bayer, University Parkway. I'm known as Kana in my community. I'd like to follow up on my comments from the council meeting 2 weeks ago when I spoke about the traffic bottlenecks we experience on University Parkway west of Milton, especially on Monday mornings when trash pickup begins first thing at the west end of our block. There's a short window of time when our trash is being picked up at the same time that school buses are coming through, children are waiting for their buses in driveways, and other traffic and parking challenges are present. Last Monday, we had a reprieve as there were no school buses picking up children that morning. Early this morning, the trash buggies were almost done on the block when a school bus traveling south on Milton attempted to turn right onto University Parkway. One of the buses was running a little late, so 2 buses arrived back to back, which I'm told was understandably frustrating for the trash buggy drivers. A parent has told me that the school bus drivers seem to have a new protocol where they will not stop in front of a driveway to pick up the kids waiting in that driveway. They will only stop where there is grass, which in the winter will certainly make things more difficult. I again want to emphasize that we appreciate the drivers, the school bus drivers and the trash buggy drivers, who are careful and patient despite understandably wanting to get their work done. They are having to navigate around children waiting for their buses in driveways, the school buses themselves, parked cars, and traffic to Garrity Elementary. I recently became aware that we have a neighbor undergoing treatment for a health condition who, on a daily basis, experiences difficulties getting in and out of their driveway, which is only 1 car length wide, and which often has cars parked right up to the edge of their driveway. I apologize, the pictures that I was given are not attached because of printer issues, but I will email them after tonight's meeting. Because trash pickup and school bus pickups are happening roughly within the same time frame, but it's just not possible to predict exactly who will be where on our block and when, I would like to ask the city to move forward with any combination of creating a no parking or permit zone on our block, as well as moving the trash pickup start point off the school bus route. I also completely understand the controversy surrounding our trash pickup system, but I'm not interested in debating that now, as the more immediate need is to ensure the safety of our children on our block. Please also advise me if there is anyone else I should be forwarding my comments to besides the City Council, the Mayor, the Law Director, and the Chief of Police. And as an aside, on a different subject, I am 100% in favor of the city abiding by the current zoning regulations and being equally applied to all areas of the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who care to address the city this evening? Please state your name and address for the record. You may take up to 5 minutes.
My name is Sean Belt, 2292 Canterbury Road. I'm reading from the, as of yet, approved minutes from the July 6th Planning Commission meeting. Before this applicant was presented, Mayor Brennan noted that the city contracted the services of ZoneCo to do a comprehensive zoning code update of all districts of the city. Among the intent is to modernize the city, move on from what the University Square had been, and get away from the automobile-centric design and to focus more on pedestrians, mass transit, and bicycles. The city has beautiful, walkable neighborhoods, and then there are commercial areas that have been grafted in that are out of scale and do not integrate well into the walkable neighborhoods. Mayor Brennan stated that there are efforts to change that and to make the development such that the community is a more pedestrian-oriented city, that the city is not automobile-centric. The desire is to have new development follow along those lines. We are in the process of making those changes. It just so happens this application comes with regards to zoning for a project that was built 20 years ago and is in the process of being updated, but is not yet. The desire among elected officials and in the community is that movement is in this direction. He noted that there are going to be variances needed for this project, however you bring it about, given the descriptions of the U9 and the interplay between 1266 and 1274. It was pointed out that as long as there's a drive-through, a variance will be needed, and it is understood that from the applicant's point of view, the driveway is a necessary feature. It is hard to imagine Chick-fil-A being built today without a drive-through. Mayor Brennan discussed plans that have been years in the works, but deferred in part by the pandemic and numerous obstacles involving the stakeholders at University Square. He noted that a memorandum of understanding has been executed regarding the redevelopment of University Square and how it will be negotiated. It was mentioned that there had been a development agreement that the city entered into previously, described some of the plans for same, including opening up the center of University Square and making it a walkable district. This would accommodate the 206 households that would be added to a residential mixed-use area. He noted that the city is considering what the community will look like in decades to come. He doesn't feel that this particular project fits in currently in this form. Mayor Brennan noted that he didn't know if there is a place for a restaurant like this that fits in with what is ultimately being envisioned by the leaders of this community. He is hopeful that something is created that is good not only now, but for many years to come. Currently, this does not jive. There was discussion regarding whether or not this is something that would be built in a year or 2 or 3 years. The Planning Commission approvals are good for 1 year. Mayor Brennan noted even if the project is approved now, he is not prepared to say there would be an approval a year from now or 2 years or 3 years from now. Chick-fil-A is going to wait for years, if Chick-fil-A is going to wait for years. Mayor Brennan welcomes businesses that want to consider building and developing in University Heights, adding that this is a great community with a strong consumer base. Chick-fil-A very well could have a home here, but Mayor Brennan stated that more is needed than what the original plan or the one currently submitted proposes. From a comment that Mayor Brennan stated on Facebook, there will be no Chick-fil-A in our city unless A, the City Council votes for it, or B, it is built after court order or court settlement, because Chick-fil-A is ramping up to sue the city. I just think we all need to hear these things. This is very important knowledge, and I'm very happy when all information is given, because as a resident, I want to hear everything about what is happening with this plan. I would like to hear everything about what is happening with this plan, because A doesn't fit with B. There's things here that don't make sense to a lot of us, and if they could be explained, that would be better for us.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would care to address the city this evening?
Mike Meliskis, 2592 University Boulevard. I just wanted to step up and say thank you to the city for the past week. We've had wonderful events that happened that were sponsored by the city. The open house for the fire department, that was really wonderful for my family and for my kids. To be able to meet the fire department, to learn about some of the safety that we should be having in our homes and some of the services that they offer, where they can come to our homes and do a safety inspection or bring us free smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, stuff like that. So I would encourage other people who maybe are listening tonight to take advantage of those. And then also Fall Fest yesterday, which was unfortunately dampened by some of the weather, but was really a wonderful event. My kids really enjoyed themselves, and I was glad to be out there for the limited time that we could. So I appreciate that the city does these things, and I hope that we continue to do great things like this and Juneteenth and all this stuff that really makes it a wonderful community to be in. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would care to address the city this evening?
Rachel Gross, 3845 Northwood Road. Good evening. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Rachel Gross, and along with my twin sister Sarah, I own Bialys Bagels, and I am here tonight to voice my opposition to Chick-fil-A. Our journey to bagel shop ownership was a long and windy road, but purchasing Bialys in December of 2017 certainly brought the entire expedition full circle. Sarah and I were born in University Heights on Bushnell, and walking us up to Bialys for bagels in the stroller was a ritual for our mom. As we grew up attending the Temple Tifereth Israel and Orange schools, bagels continued to be a big part of our lives. Whether it was bagel sandwiches at Bagel Brothers in Pepper Pike every single Sunday before religious school, or visits to our uncle's bagel shop in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, after a family vacation at the beach, bagels equaled memories. As we entered high school and local bagel shops serving bagel sandwiches started to close up, my sister and I, along with our late older brother Jonathan, would often joke around, what if we could bring a bagel shop like Uncle Danny's to Cleveland? We just need one so bad. Our only option for a good bagel sandwich these days is a giant national chain. Sure, there's Bialys. They make their dough fresh in-house, which is a huge factor in this equation, but they do not sell bagel sandwiches, and that is another major factor in this equation. At the time, this all felt like a far-off fantasy world. None of us really wanted to run a bagel shop, did we? Well, in 2001, Jonathan headed down to Winston-Salem to complete his senior project at our uncle's bagel shop, the Bagel Station. He had the best experience and told stories about it for months and months, but working for a few weeks as an intern is way different than owning and operating a business, so Jonathan enrolled in college, but sadly passed away the summer before his junior year, and we never got to see if Jonathan's bagel dreams would come true. Sarah and I had just graduated high school at the time of our brother's accident, and it's safe to say it took us a few years to really find ourselves. I enrolled at Ohio University and graduated in 2007 with degrees in Spanish and Spanish education, truly believing my life's calling was to be a Spanish teacher. I spent several years pursuing education, which I found didn't fully satisfy me. Sarah graduated with a degree in human resources from Cleveland State in 2011, and that is when we decided to start seriously pursuing the idea of opening a bagel shop, partly to honor our brother, but also to fill a gaping hole in the bagel sandwich market. In 2012, Sarah and I spent some time working at the Bagel Station in Winston-Salem to learn everything we needed to know to bring this concept back to Cleveland. When we arrived home, we searched and searched and searched, but to no avail, we could not find the perfect location for a bagel shop, and we seriously considered giving up on this wild idea once and for all. Until the summer of 2017, when we were presented with the opportunity to purchase the University Heights institution, Bialys Bagels. Sure, we couldn't sell the bagel sandwiches, but we wouldn't let that stop us from living out our bagel shop owner dreams. To say taking over such a pillar of the community was scary is the understatement of a lifetime, but we dove in head first, and here we are, 6 years later, thriving as bagel shop owners, and as of about 6 weeks ago, selling bagel sandwiches. It's honestly still hard for me to believe. The last 6 years has been filled with a plethora of challenges, the pandemic, a difficult landlord, customers doubting our ownership, you name it, we overcame it. It has not been easy, but we are incredibly proud of carrying on the legacy that is Bialys Bagels. Naively, we thought some of our most difficult challenges were behind us. And then, several weeks ago, the bomb dropped. Chick-fil-A gets a green light, as zoning variances are waived, just about a half a mile from our shop, practically in our backyard. To say that I'm furious might actually be the understatement of a lifetime. I've been fuming since I learned this. Some people may have a hard time seeing how Chick-fil-A poses a threat to my business. Chicken versus bagels. But for me, it's crystal clear. Quick breakfast versus quick breakfast. Quick lunch versus quick lunch. With so many quick service options already in the area, including multiple local chicken spots, why do we need to further saturate the area with another giant corporate monstrosity that just doesn't emulate the spirit of University Heights? For the last 6 years, my sister and I have been incredibly grateful for the support of the city as we navigated many of the challenges I mentioned moments ago. But if Chick-fil-A opens in our backyard, we will be immensely disappointed. If our community is as supportive of local businesses as it claims to be, please do not move this project forward. Additionally, as a resident of University Heights and not just a bagel shop owner in University Heights, I do not support the Chick-fil-A project.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the city this evening? Seeing none, no more. We will now turn to reports and communications from the mayor and the taking of action thereon. Yesterday was the 4th annual Fall Fest. The weather was not the best, but spirits were still high. We had a great showing from the community in spite of the weather. The final musical act, Jason Patrick Myers, did not play as scheduled due to the weather. We plan to have him back for the summer concert series in 2024. We plan to hold the 5th annual Fall Fest in 2024 on a date to be determined. My thanks to Deanna Bremer Fisher, Mike Cook, Chloe Celia, our service department, police department, fire department for working together to bring this event together for the 4th time. The City of University Heights has posted its request for qualifications for the position of city engineer. This posting may be found on the city website and on cleveland.com. I've also shared with numerous firms and engineers in Greater Cleveland currently performing engineering work for municipalities. Deadline to submit is Friday, October 27th, 2023 at noon. On October 5, 2023, the University Heights Planning Commission recommended approval of the Chick-fil-A application and found grounds under Section 1274 for a special use permit for a drive-through and a patio, together with waiving in lieu of granting variances for 6 conditions regarding 2 landscaping conditions, lot size, front setback of 66 feet instead of 75, and maximum widths and access points. Notwithstanding these minor conditions, in a U9 zoning district, restaurant use is a permitted use. And while a drive-through is a special use, there is a precedent on this very site for a drive-through, given the one at Huntington Bank, and precedent for a single-story, single-use restaurant with a drive-through and a patio in the U9 zoning district next to a residential district with the Dunkin' Donuts. This vote to recommend the application passed after a motion to reject the application received no second, and a motion to table was defeated. I bring this up because this item is not on tonight's agenda at the request of the applicant. The applicant contacted our law director last week and indicated that it would be submitting a revised application. Seemingly, this is an effort to reduce further the number of variances needed. I'm referring to them here as variances, even though the motion passed planning recommended waiving the 6 requirements rather than granting 6 variances in an effort to limit the approval to this applicant and not create variances that run with the land. The framing of this motion with this distinction is subject to further review by the law department. The framing of the motion as we did was done at the recommendation and direction of the city law director. Depending on the applicant's timeliness of the filing of the revisions at this time, we anticipate the Chick-fil-A application being before council as soon as the November 6, 2023 meeting. Finally, a moment on Israel. Following the terrorist attack on Israel by Hamas on Saturday, October 7, 2023, last week we displayed the flag of Israel at University Heights City Hall in support of the people of Israel and in support of the state of Israel. Here at University Heights, we have many residents who have family and friends in Israel. We have residents who are reservists in the Israeli army, who were called up and have gone to Israel to report to duty and serve. We have residents who were there when this attack happened and are there right now, whose safety is of great concern. May they all be delivered safely from harm. Our support of our friends and neighbors, of family, and of Israel is unreserved. I ordered the display of the flag of Israel without reservation. While I've heard the gratitude of many for the support, I've also already heard the calls of those who question the display and seek that I acknowledge the complexity of the long-standing situation. And I say this: Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they do not speak for the Palestinian people. Hamas has committed a terrorist assault on Israel and on innocent people in Israel. Too many have already been killed, injured, or are otherwise still unaccounted for in this attack. And there are many people in Gaza, 2 million people, Palestinian people, about half of whom are children, who are endangered as well, because of Hamas's terrorist acts and the need of Israel to protect itself. No one may engage in terrorism. No one may engage in atrocities or attacks calculated to kill civilians, rather than focus on strictly military targets. The history is long and complicated. Our support of Israel here is not complicated. We support Israel. We support the right of the Jewish state of Israel to exist. In University Heights, we stand with our neighbors, our friends, our families, who are in varying degrees maybe as intertwined with Israel as they are with the local community here. We pray for your safety, for peace, for justice, and we support you. Thank you. This concludes my report. Next, we have reports and communications from the City Council on the taking of action thereon. Are there any reports?
Yes.
Mrs. Weiss, you have the floor.
I want to thank you, Mayor, first of all, for the statement about Israel. 2 things. One was there was a robust service and utilities meeting that I'm sure Mrs. Sachs will report on. Many future ideas were discussed. And I want to thank Mr. Pennington for his willingness to address various issues in a professional manner. Lastly, I look forward, and I know many residents do also. I was told that in the Friday wrap-up there will be an explanation of the charter review amendments that are on the ballot that will be easy to understand for an explanation to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other reports from council at this time? Okay. Then we turn now to the reports and communications from the directors of the various departments, and we start with the Director of Finance, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I just want to touch on a couple of highlights for financial activity through the end of September. I'll give a more detailed presentation tomorrow night at the Finance Committee meeting. Through the end of September, our net revenue in the general fund, $13,880,981. Net expense, $12,380,458. So with that excess of revenue over expenses for the first 3 quarters of the year, our unexpended balance has grown to $8,041,333. Taking into account the encumbrances that are open right now through the end of the year, our ending balance in the general fund, which is not reserved for any specific future purchase, is $6,530,700. On an all funds basis, our revenue for the year, $17,544,847. Net expenses, $15,875,008. So again, excess of revenue over expense for financial activity through the end of September. Our unexpended balance for all funds, $11,685,897. Taking into account $2.9 million of encumbrances. Our ending balance for all funds that's not reserved as of right now, $8,782,342. And as I said, I will give a more detailed presentation tomorrow evening on highlights the first 3 quarters of the year, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions. We're still waiting for final reconciliation from ODOT for that Cedar Road project. My understanding is the project came in significantly under budget. That was where the city had upfront all the costs. So I'm hoping we'll have a pretty sizable check coming to us from ODOT as a refund for the savings that were realized in that project. Haven't heard anything definitive from ODOT in that regard or our engineer, but still checking on it. But again, be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Turn now to the Director of Law.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be asking council this evening for an executive session to discuss the Yabi eminent domain litigation, and we'll deliver a report in an executive session.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. McConville. Public Safety Police, any report?
Mayor, no report.
No report, thank you. Public Safety Fire, any report?
No report this evening.
Okay, no report, thank you. Service Department, Mr. Pennington is not here, but I have a written report. To date, 9 of 14 street and catch basin repairs provided at the last Service and Utilities meeting have been completed. The Service Department is actively working to complete the original list. The Service Department has hired 3 new full-time laborers/drivers who will be starting over the next 2 weeks. On October 23rd, the Service Department will welcome DeJuan Brown, and on October 30th, we will welcome David George and Eric Manager to the City of University Heights. Leaf collection will begin tomorrow, October 17th, and will continue through December 22nd. Collection will begin on South Green Road and will proceed westward over the coming weeks. Over the next 2 weeks, 1 to 2 leaf vacuums will be out daily, subject to employee availability. Minimum staffing will begin providing up to 5 employees daily, October 30th through December 22nd. One major change of note this year is that the City of University Heights discourages residents from using craft bags for the leaves. Our new leaf disposal site requires clean and unbagged leaves for processing. The city recently contracted with Green Vision Materials for leaf processing at a significant savings over the previous disposal site. This concludes the Service Department report. Thank you. Next is yes.
Thank you. In absentia, I would like to thank Mr. Pennington. That was a robust discussion, and I appreciate his attention to the things we discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Building Department, Mr. Cheatham.
No report.
No report. Thank you, Mr. Cheatham. Housing and Community Development, Mr. Engelbrecht.
Good evening. I just want to report that we submitted the grant to NOACA for the Taylor Road Corridor project last Friday. We have a public meeting set up for October 30th at 5:30 at the library for all businesses and property owners in the city who may own property along Taylor and Cedar at the intersection to let them know of the upcoming changes, which we're hoping will happen. I personally flyered all of the businesses in the district on our side of the street, minus the BMV and A. Garber's upholstery, which was closed when I was out flyering, but we'll get them the flyers tomorrow. So within 2 weeks, we'll have a meeting, and our presentation to NOACA for the grant itself is on November 15th.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Engelbrecht. We have a couple of questions. Mr. Rock.
Yeah, Mr. Engelbrecht, thank you for reaching out to the vendors along Taylor Road. That was something that came out of this meeting, or it was a request that you reach out to them. Did you also reach out to the developer for the townhomes as well?
Yes.
Okay, and everything was smooth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weiser.
Thank you again for following up on that. I greatly appreciate it. Is Cleveland Heights going to reach out to their businesses as well? Have you invited them to this meeting too?
Yes. It's a joint meeting between our cities. I want to say the GIS coordinator with Cleveland Heights will be present. Yes, and they will be covering their side of the street.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Engelbrecht? Thank you, Mr. Engelbrecht. Next is City Engineer. Mr. Cheney's been excused from the rest of the meetings this year. He does not have a report. Next is Communications and Civic Engagement. Mr. Cook is excused this evening, but as reported earlier, he is working on summaries of the charter review amendments to be placed in the Friday e-news. I understand he'll be referring those to the Department of Law for review before they are published.
Next then is Economic Development, Mrs. Drucker.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to let everyone know that the building at 2115 South Taylor Road has been purchased by Lefty's Cheesesteaks, and they are looking to be open by the end of the year. So that building has been purchased.
I'm sorry, can you speak up, Mrs.?
2115 South Taylor Road. That building has been purchased by a company, a franchise, Lefty's Cheesesteaks, and they anticipate opening by the end of the year.
Thank you.
That's the former KFC building, just so everyone is aware.
Very good.
And then just also to remind everyone, the zone code meeting is October 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. That will be in the first floor meeting room of the library. And, yep, that's it. That's all the information.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Drucker. Any questions for Mrs. Drucker? All right, very good. Thank you, Mrs. Drucker. We turn now to item 9, reading and disposition of ordinances, resolutions, motions, and consideration of agenda items. The first item is item A, a motion to enter executive session for personnel matters. Specifically, it's a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the tentative agreement with the International Association of Firefighters for their new collective bargaining agreement. Is there a motion to enter into that executive session?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Weiss. Seconded. Second by Mr. King. Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, very good. We are in executive session. We'll be going to the other room. People who are here may stay here. I don't anticipate we'll be very long. Chief Perko, if you could join us. Michael Zalesnik, I didn't see you, but I think you're out there. Please join us as well. I see you now.
Yeah, that's what we put that way in.
What's your profile?
No, well, the trouble not.
Yeah. Seldom like this.
No, well, Sean hasn't been doing as long as I've been coming to every meeting, probably for 5 years, longer than that. I mean, I do a lot of work on the city. No,
a lot of us are to blame.
A lot of us are to blame because we had a way. Yeah. I mean, you still a problem because I do a lot of the city. I mean, I have to. But he's becoming, slowly becoming a surrender. He's becoming, but he's not. He's sat there so stubborn all the time. He's like this. I'm glad he's there. Lynn's there. She's a giver. She's hard. Michelle's in the That's. No, I'm not using you for that.
Yes. Yes.
Once they take
Yeah, well, that's up for a vote on that. That's one of the charter amendments.
It is.
Because it has to come in line, more in line with Ohio State law. Right now, it says a percentage of eligible voters, and it has to change to percentage of who voted in the last election. Because the eligible voter number changed the way through, so you can't say that. Right. So it's just a minor change. What I see though is that a lot of people are willing to speak online and never do anything in person. But there's nothing binding here.
Well, he doesn't see what's it's a discussion because he doesn't follow.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't.
But you know,
I just want this to be, real board. I would love a board city.
I would love to see. Yeah,
I would love a board city.
Do you remember when we were here when they go to the town over here 5 minutes?
Yeah, I like a board city.
One of those in the station. Sherry says it's a bull. Sherry. Oh. You ain't seen nothing. Wait till wait till we get to that agenda. City council recommendations. That's going to be the one on the last page. 7 page, one on the last
I'm coming up on 2 years here this month. DC. So this is team. Yeah. I'm just getting shot out time. This is so throwing things. Well, that. Yeah, there's still time. Still early in the meeting. Wait, to the next I always have tempted to just pull it up and start the recording.
No. I've been here 2 years.
Oh, have you? Where did you live?
I moved from Cleveland.
Oh, fun.
No.
Okay.
Where'd you live? What district? Or what?
In Larchmere.
Oh,
okay,
fun.
so not far away. So you were in Blainsburg.
What's that?
You were in Blaine. You were
Yes.
Which is the. I talked to Blaine almost. I talked to him probably twice a week.
Oh, okay.
It's one of my personal friends. Nice.
But Larchmere here, Larchmere's so cool.
It is, but we bought a house and we were renting.
Oh. Well.
Yeah, I moved here. I started like in the second year we lived here. I started joining the Facebook page and the discussion. I was like,
grab a glass of wine.
This is my first council meeting that I've ever been to. And I feel like, oh, I have to say
Well, here's the thing.
So
don't show up to these meetings.
Yeah,
Like Randy's wife or his wife, they don't show up to these meetings.
I heard this.
I don't know.
I still feel like
He started.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah,
because
so when I was a kid, I walked a quarter mile.
but he can't do anything about it. Technically, he can't do anything about it. That's what one of the charter amendments is, to let city council run the meetings.
I think maybe
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about
Come to the meetings.
But you already know who you're voting for in the next election.
Based on what I'm reading.
Well, I'm set on my four.
How many are Republicans for?
There's 4 seats up.
Four seats out of 8.
4 seats up. Right.
Does that include vice mayor? Or?
Yeah. Okay. It's John Rock. Teresa Marshall, Lynn Weiser, and Michelle.
Right. The sign technicians.
It's the staff. You're not cool unless you have the whole staff.
No, that's what we call.
Right.
That's the. I'll be honest with you. And Brian.
Okay.
So.
Something for service.
I've seen that online.
Yeah.
No, Cooney.
It's not enough for my life.
Oh my God, that's quite. No, it's just it's gonna. It's fun.
Oh,
that's.
Is there a motion to return to exit executive session and return to regular session? So moved. Motion by Mr. Cooney. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, we are back in regular session. Item B on the agenda is a motion to approve tentative agreement with International Association of Firefighters 974 for new collective bargaining agreement July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2026, and authorizing the mayor to execute same. This is being heard on emergency. Mr. Zalesnik, would you care to come up to the podium and say a few words on this agenda item?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I would highly recommend you guys adopt the tentative agreement. It is in parity with the service agreement as well as the police agreement, with the addition of adding an additional lieutenant, but not changing the composition of the bargaining unit in total. Again, we made some incidental increases to uniform allowance and fitness allowance of $200, as well as adding a $500 stipend for the car seat technician. Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Zalesnik? And if not, is there a motion to approve the tentative agreement? You know, we have on here on emergency, but I think it's just a motion, correct? Yes, thank you. Just a motion to approve the tentative agreement with the IFF.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Ms. Marshall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Sacks. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Very good, motion carries. Next is item C, ordinance 2023-56, amending codified ordinance section 240.01 entitled Composition, to modify the composition of positions in the fire department and declaring an emergency. This is on emergency. It's introduced by myself. I'll say a few words. We just approved the tentative agreement with the IFF Local 974. One of the terms of the tentative agreement is that the fire prevention officer will be a lieutenant and is therefore, up to this point, this person has been paid as a lieutenant, wears a white shirt like a lieutenant, gives orders like a lieutenant, but hasn't actually held the rank of lieutenant. This is one of the changes that we've made. The current composition ordinance states that there are 3 lieutenants and 24 firefighters. Well, it actually says 1 chief, 4 captains, 3 lieutenants, and 24 firefighters. We have not expanded this beyond the current number of 32. Instead, it will simply be 1 chief, 4 captains, 4 lieutenants instead of 3, and 23 firefighters instead of 24, thus reflecting the composition of the
of the Forsyth Division of Fire going forward. Is there a motion to approve on emergency?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Weiser, is there a second? I'll second. Second by Mr. Cooney. Any discussion? We'll take 2 votes. First is on the suspension of rules. Mrs. Thomas.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
And then on the main motion.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is item D, a motion to approve the October 5, 2023 Planning Commission recommendation for the approval of the application from Drew's Homes for the approvals of demolition of existing home at 2649 Whitten Road and the site plan of a new single-family house built subject to the entry development agreement with the city. Is there anybody from the applicant here to present on this evening? And if not, Mr. McConville, do you want to say a few words about what happened at the Planning Commission with respect to the site?
Sure. Planning Commission voted, I believe, unanimously to recommend approval of the proposed site plan to council. The application is for the demolition of an existing home and construction of a new home on site on Whitten Road, 2649 Whitten Road. During the course of the hearing, there was public comment taken in which residents expressed a variety of concerns relating to things such as mud and debris in the streets, fencing of the construction site, hours of operation for the construction crews, and similar concerns that with respect to how the construction might impact the neighborhood. The approval was contingent, the recommendation was contingent upon the developer entering into a development agreement with the city where the list of items that was raised by members of the community would be included as part of the contract. Many of them are included as a matter of course, but we did take notes during the hearing. We'll be sure to customize the agreement to the concerns that were raised by the residents. It's worth noting that the application presented as a permitted use, no variance site plan. The application complies with all of our height regulations, area variances, setbacks, and so forth.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to approve the recommendations of the Planning Commission?
Mayor, any more comments?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Mr. Rock.
So as Mr. McConville said, there's no variances that were required for this project. It's pretty straightforward, beautiful house. The footprint of the home is consistent with the footprint of the home that's being demolished. The setbacks are consistent with the setbacks of the one being demolished. So it's a similar size scale of what was there, a little taller, but in terms of actual square footage, it's pretty consistent. We did discuss parking for construction vehicles. Did you mention that?
I don't know if I
don't remember you mentioning that. Okay.
Yes, that was mentioned.
On that particular road, it is a cul-de-sac, so street parking is not available at the circle portion of the road. So construction vehicles would have to park across site or where the road straightens towards, I guess that is Washington Boulevard there. So they discussed that. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward, beautiful home. We approved it unanimously.
Very good. We always appreciate when applicants are interested in investing here in this community. And just happy to be among those on the Planning Commission who supported this application. Is there a motion to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation for the approval of the Drew's Home application, including the demo of the existing home, 2649 Whitten, et cetera, as listed in the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Sacks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Marshall. Any discussion on the motion? Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is item E, which reads discussion regarding council chambers demolition. I give the floor to Deanna Bremer Fisher for a presentation.
Please. Can you see it? Okay.
We got something going.
Okay, this is great. Now, I'm not sure how to flip slides while I'm up here. I guess I'll be running back and forth.
Maybe the mouse will. My mic seems to be off. Maybe the mouse will stretch. Mics are all off.
Mics are off.
Monitors off.
You'll get one or the other, but you can't get both.
You can get both, because this report's a little too loud.
Well, hopefully this will be worth the wait.
You have to wait till the next one.
Right.
That is.
The lights aren't right. You can see what's coming. You can see it.
Right, the mics for the recording. I need the mics for the recording.
Right. That's what we don't know mics.
Oh, sorry.
we're waiting for the mics to come back on?
I think so. This is something where the mics just
No,
turn
but
on and takes a moment to reinitialize.
Yeah, they got unplugged.
Right.
Check. There we go.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, all right.
Oh, better than ever.
All right, well, good evening. I wanted to take this time to give a little bit of a history of our City Hall. This is part of a presentation that I did back in May and just adjusted a little bit for this purpose. So what you're looking at is you're looking at plat map from the early 1900s, and you're looking at the original town hall for Idlewood Village, which is what University Heights was called at that time. It was by architect Adrian Foose, with a symmetrical facade and the front door facing Warrensville Center Road. It housed the entire city administration, including 2 jail cells in the basement, and bore what was then the name of the new village of University Heights. Council chambers was on the 2nd floor, accessible from a flight of stairs. And you can see from this picture that it was pretty spare back in the 1920s. The town hall was redecorated in 1940. The floor tile appears to have been added at that point, as were the curtains and the portraits of Washington and Lincoln. Almost from the beginning, the town hall was too small for the needs of the growing suburb. By 1940, the village had grown to 5,000 inhabitants and became eligible under Ohio law to become a city. Growth came with many challenges. In 1940, the Ohio Inspection Bureau warned Cleveland Heights officials, who provided fire services for the village, that their insurance rates would go up if they continued to service the growing community of University Heights. So they voted to terminate their contract, giving the village only 6 months to raise the funds, construct a building, purchase equipment, and hire staff for a fire department of their own. Residents were asked to vote for both a levy to fund the fire department and a modern home rule charter. Both were approved by voters in a special election in 1941. The city of University Heights began to function under the new charter on January 1st, 1942. And the city selected J.P. Snavely Company to build an addition onto the back of the town hall to house the new fire department. The city continued to grow rapidly after World War II, achieving 10,000 in population by 1947. In 1969, the fire station was expanded so that it could house the new longer ladder truck that the department had purchased. The University Heights Police Station was constructed in 1952. It was built 1 story tall with a flat roof, which was intended to enable a 2nd story to be added at a later date. I thought that was interesting. In the 1960s, City Hall was modernized by closing off the front door to create more office space for city personnel and moving it from the Warrensville Center Road facade to the Silsby Road side, where it was closer to parking. This photo from the 1970s shows that new configuration. As you can see, the door has been changed. Wood paneling and drop ceilings were also part of the new decor. It was sometime later, perhaps in the 1970s or 80s, that the dais was added to council chambers and carpet squares were applied on top of the tile flooring. In January 2019, that was the last time that a council meeting was held in that space. 1 month later, an office for the clerk of council was planned for the space. And as you can see here, this is just 1 month later. In 2022, and this is actually the drawing of that first office that was created in the space. In 2022, a 2nd office was added for the assistant of council. The office walls are freestanding, as you can see here, and can be easily removed without destroying the historic fabric of the chambers. City Hall interns also work on this level, and the space is also used as spillover conference room space. A couple of weeks ago, the dais was removed to enable the construction of another office. The remainder of the space will continue to house workspace for interns and overflow meeting space. That concludes the presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Weiskamp?
Was there any notification given to council of the changes?
Which changes do you mean?
The most recent ones.
The most recent changes. I don't know. I can't answer that question.
I understand that Mr. Pennington notified Mrs. Weiss and Mrs. Sachs on the 20th at the Apostle John's concert.
But was it the notification obviously from Ms. Mullen? Was it Rachel Mullins? For the initial changes to the council area? You showed us a memo that went, I assume, to council. Is that correct? I was reading it.
I don't know if that was two, but that was a memo just about the plans, showing the plans for the office.
So that came out. But my understanding is that I got nothing. I saw no memo that came to, and I was on council.
In 2019?
No. The current one, Mayor.
Right, no, there was no memo issued regarding the
So there was no
office
notification to council that had been done in 2019, as was done in 2019, to be precise.
Yeah, I don't recall precisely how we notified council in 2019 that we were moving Mrs. Thomas upstairs from the basement. But once we moved and the council meetings out of City Hall, we immediately began plans to convert the second floor of City Hall into office space. And it started with Mrs. Thomas in her office space and the interns moving upstairs. In 22, when we hired our assistant clerk of council, we created an additional office space and then bringing it up to 3 people that were working upstairs. And now we're moving it on to 4 people working upstairs. Mr. Roth.
Could you go back to you mentioned there was carpet squares installed in the 1980s?
Well, we don't know exactly when the dais was constructed. We know that it was sometime after the 1960s renovation.
But you mentioned that the carpet squares were added in the 80s. I don't believe they had carpet squares back then, but I do remember in 2016 the Architecture Review Board meeting with Mayor Infeld at the time to do a comprehensive redo of that space, which included carpet squares, included painting of the space, cleaning the detail of the ceiling, and some other cosmetic changes of the space. So it had a full, I'm surprised you didn't mention it, there was a renovation in 2016. It's something that's important to note.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Oh, yes, Mr. Cooney.
Where's the dais now?
It's in storage?
Yeah, we have an off-site storage facility that holds a number of city items, records, furniture. The dais and the orange chairs are both there. Thank you.
Question regarding that. Can the dais be reinstalled to look exactly the same if that was requested? For instance, if one day we want to go back to making that at council chambers, will the room look exactly the way it was given the materials you say are in storage? Are they able to go back together? Because the pictures I saw looked like they were destroyed, so I'm not sure how carefully they were dismantled. Could you elaborate a little further on that?
Certainly. The dais itself, the fronts and the countertop were all carefully disassembled and packed up and shipped over to the storage facility where they are intact and could be reassembled either in that space or in some other space at some future date. The platform that they sat on was nothing more than unfinished wood and plywood, carpet padding, and carpet. That was discarded, but that was plain wood and gray carpeting, which would easily be replicated if we wanted to rebuild them. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Did you have another question for?
I have I have the presentation. Actually, I put this on the agenda item. I would think if Ms. Bremer Fisher put this on the agenda item, it would be discussion regarding council chambers remodeling. But I deliberately put it on as council chambers demolition. May I use the mouse from here? Will it work? From the presentation I have? Or do I have to go up there?
That you had a presentation. You didn't advise me. So
No,
I went
I
ahead
didn't
and had a
advise
presentation.
you. But I did. We weren't advised about that one.
No.
So how do I do that?
And according to ordinance, I'm supposed to be notified at least 3 days before the agenda goes out.
It's a
Yes.
city council meeting.
I know, but according to ordinance, I'm supposed to be notified at least 3 days. And that said, I didn't take it off the agenda.
Okay, good. I would like to then have comments that happen to have, no, please turn it back.
Oh, I'm sorry, couldn't
Please
see
turn
you.
it back.
Okay.
We need to, council has not seen this presentation.
I'm sorry.
So should I stand up there? Okay. Okay, forgive me for my.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see you.
Yes, and I can see my back.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, so how do we need to do that?
That's her laptop.
Okay.
You might use your laptop. That's fine. I'll use the flash drive.
Thank you. Again, I apologize for my back.
As long as we can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. At the last city council meeting on October 2nd, 2023, the mayor did not include an agenda item about his decision to demolish council chambers, nor did he mention it in his mayoral report. This prompted me to speak up about it as part of the city council remarks. Excuse me, I need some water. I've since discovered that the moment I started speaking at that meeting, the screen on the live stream went green and my remarks were spotty and actually unintelligible. It's for this reason I actually placed this on today's agenda to bring the issue into the sunlight. So how do I advance? Okay. Oh. Whoa. Okay. No, that's not it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is actually. So this photo, let me explain what you're looking at. On Friday, September 22nd, I had a pre-scheduled meeting with the Clerk of Council to prepare for the October 10th Service and Utilities Committee meeting. And this is what I saw. I came upstairs and the council dais was gone. The Clerk of Council, who works in a cubicle within that space, was not informed. Employees in the building were not informed. Notified is another word. And council at large was not informed. This was a unilateral decision by the mayor. And just to clarify, yes, at the John Carroll University Carlos Jones concert, in just small talk, Mr. Pennington mentioned that at some point, Ms. Bremer Fisher was going to have an office upstairs. It was just an offhand comment. It was not a notification nor any time limit. So this was very much surprising to me. The next set of photos, there are about a dozen of them, were taken the very next day, on Saturday, September 23rd. I did not take them. They were given to me. The photos will speak for themselves. And I'll just go through them if I can figure out how to do it. The dais and the platform became completely dismantled. Council chambers gutted by a reportedly understaffed University Heights Service Department who worked overtime at least on that weekend. I was told in some emails when I asked, no tiles were pulled and there was zero exposure, perhaps to asbestos. However, these photos are going to show floor tiles disrupted, glue exposed, walls open, dust, debris, and the floor below. The black mastic behind the wall base and under the tile became exposed. There you can see right there. Right there. Okay. And you can see the carpeting is exposing the tiles, and the tiles are disrupted along the baseboard and on the front left part of the floor. There's a gaping hole there. Glue. The tiles are disrupted. Walls. So you get the picture. Is it crayon or something? No. Okay, so this is very disturbing and scary. In 1975, the Environmental Protection Agency banned installation of asbestos. Buildings older than that tended to be built with asbestos-containing materials. You heard Ms. Bremer Fisher say that those tiles were installed, I think, in the 40s. Buildings older than that tended to be built with asbestos-containing materials, and the University Heights City Hall was built almost a century ago. Renovations made to older buildings today need to be tested before disturbing the material, which may have warranted a total asbestos abatement in a controlled and sealed environment. Materials cannot just go in a dumpster or storage. They require special removal and a cleanup procedure. So I felt compelled at the October 2nd council meeting to ask the mayor, our city's safety director, if an air quality test had been completed by a certified industrial hygienist after dismantling and completely gutting council chambers. Actually, to test it before is what I would say now, knowing a little more. But in that meeting, the mayor did respond no, as we will find out. And he eventually did not ever arrange for the air quality to be tested. And now we look ahead. The next few photos are going to show by September 27th, plywood sheeting was glued to cover the floor in preparation for the carpeting, which I was told, quote, was installed by the end of the following week, which had been October 6th. So I'm going to speak a little more, then I'll show you the pictures. I'm relieved to learn that from Mr. Pekorski, who is the reporter for Cleveland.com and Sun Press, that the air quality had finally been tested on Friday, October 6th, due to an anonymous call to the County Board of Health. It was when the areas were already covered up and not when exposed. So the next set of photos were taken that following week, showing the completely covered up surfaces. And this is what Mr. Pekorski, the reporter, saw when he finally was able to tour with Mayor Brennan, Ms. Bremer Fisher, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Pennington. And this is similar to what you saw in Ms. Bremer Fisher's final picture. Oh, we don't have the last slide. Okay. So the unilateral decision to demolish council chambers was to make room for a private office for an administrative assistant without any notification or discussion with council and the public. It was as if it was personal property. Council chambers on the second floor of City Hall is not personal property. It is public property. It belongs to the people of University Heights. It has American and local city historic and symbolic significance. The decision and the manner in which it was being carried out demonstrates a lack of respect for our historic city building and avoidance to communicate, cooperate, and collaborate amongst the branches of government. So the last photo, which you don't see, is a list of expenses to date. And I had to obtain it myself. I asked for it on October 2nd, but was not given it. And it is just the expenses of materials. It does not include labor, which I don't know what kind of demolition or remodeling is done without labor, especially overtime. So technically, they may be under the mayor's $15,000 spending limit. These expenses are derived from University Heights property taxes. So as your public servant, I feel it is my responsibility and obligation to report my observations to each of you. And as a member of City Council, it is my obligation and responsibility to report to my colleagues that there's no longer any space at City Hall for legislation, and council is essentially homeless in University Heights. Are there any questions?
That's one thing. Where was council?
Oh, wait a minute. This is a public meeting.
Okay,
The questions
I'm sorry.
are to be.
I apologize.
Yeah, we don't take.
I apologize.
Thank you. If you want to ask if there are any questions by members, fellow council
Of
members,
course,
or myself.
of course.
Yes.
I'm going to sit down.
So we'll start with Mr. King.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief in my remarks regarding the second floor of City Hall. We already discussed this at the beginning of our previous meeting. Then there was a 1,406-word article on Cleveland.com. And we had spent 22 minutes tonight on this topic. Every item on our agenda this evening, except this one, has been in a direct service to the residents of University Heights. We need to take a step back and put this in perspective. The last City Council meeting on the second floor of City Hall was January 22nd, 2019, nearly 5 years ago. Since then, meetings have been held at the Board of Education building, on Zoom during the pandemic, and since August of 2021, here in the former library of Wiley Middle School. The purpose and interior decorating of rooms change over time and out of necessity. There used to be bookshelves and computers and students in this room. The second floor of City Hall used to house council chambers. Now it serves as office space for several city employees, including our clerk of council and assistant clerk of council. The headline for this meeting should be University Heights approves contract with firefighter local 974, concludes 3-year cycle of labor negotiations. That should be the story of tonight, that we avoided arbitration with any of our unions, and that we have more fiscal clarity for the next 3 years. I think this topic here is a sideshow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Rowe.
Okay, let me clear up the record here. Mr. King must have forgot that we, as a council, met in that room on December 7th, 2022, the Facilities Task Force. In fact, it was a 3-government meeting between, yes, it was. Excuse me, I'm talking. There was a meeting of the council, administration, the school board, and the library board, all convening in that space. And we all spoke about how wonderful it was to use that space again. And that one day we will continue to use that space. So less than a year ago, we were using it for the business of the people. Mrs. Sachs, I have a question for you. What day did you say the air quality test was conducted? October 2nd or 6th?
6th. I think it was a Friday.
Okay, so the photos that you have from the Friday, several Fridays before, were on, I believe, September 22nd?
22nd, 23rd.
And you said October what?
And then October 6th.
6th. So a whole 14 days later, the air quality test was conducted. I could tell you from my architectural experience, we test materials before conducting any renovation. We conduct samples. Nothing was tested. The air was tested 14 days later, but particulates settle. They don't stay in the air for very long. So I'm glad the air is clean. The materials should have been tested. They were not. Workers were not wearing masks. I have a concern about that. Ms. Bremer Fisher noted the tiles were put in 1940. And 1940 tiles, from what I can see in the picture, are 9-inch by 9-inch squares, which are asbestos-containing tiles. Later, after the EPA banned asbestos, the floor tile industry changed the dimensions to 12-inch by 12-inch, so as not to add any confusion for people installing floor tiles. The 12-inch by 12-inch clearly is not asbestos-containing. That was the standard that was developed after that. So when I look at those pictures and I see the disruption of the tile, I do have concern about that, but it looks like it was covered up. While we had our clerk and our clerk assistant in the space while the work was being conducted.
Okay, to clarify for the record, there was a task force meeting, which was not a public meeting, that was held in the council chambers approximately a year ago. There were no bodies that had any quorums. It was not noticed as a public meeting. It did not require the accessibility that would be otherwise needed to have a public meeting. So there was, and there have been other meetings that have been held in the city council chambers that are not public meetings of public bodies. We have met with, and we have done pre-con meetings. We've had, the police department has used the chambers for various meetings. We've conducted weddings up in the council chambers. We have had a myriad of meetings where it's been spillover conference space. The task force meeting that Mr. Rock was describing is no different than any other conference use that is more commonly done in the annex and the conference room space there. But we happen to meet up in the city council chambers because I wanted to demonstrate to the other members of the task force the limitations of that particular space, the fact that it was not ADA compliant. And I made sure that everybody who was participating in the task force meeting would be able to take the steps. So, the last time we had a bona fide public meeting in that space was January 22nd, 2019. And I delivered in my mayor's report, and the minutes from that meeting will reflect that that was going to be our last meeting there, that we did not have any plan at that point to replace the chairlift, that we had only one bidder who had bid on the chairlift. We weren't going to be accepting that bid for numerous reasons, but basically because that bidder had been the bidder who had been insisting that the chairlift was working even when it was not. We didn't have any confidence in that bidder to do the work. Everybody else who came up and took measurements did not think that the angles of the stairwell were suitable for building a chairlift that would actually work, one that they could stand behind, and everybody else declined to bid. This was done, these bids were done in 2018. They were done with the assistance of Joe Chuney, our city engineer. We considered and rolled out quickly the idea of spending a minimum of $600,000 for an elevator for the building. The building itself isn't suited for an elevator. There's nowhere to build an elevator shaft. We would be building an elevator on the outside of the building, on one end or another, or on the front of it, none of which would have made the appearance of the building even remotely historically appropriate. With all that, the tiles that we saw in those photos were the tiles as we saw them when we removed the platform. We did not remove any tiles. We did not disturb any tiles. There were no tiles that were taken out with the platform that was discarded. What we're hearing here is a fabrication with regard to the tiles. I have the floor, Mrs. Sachs. Thank you very much.
Say hello.
So the EPA was out. The EPA found that there were no possible violations when they came out and did their review of the site. I have made a public records request for their report. I do not have it as of this evening, but in their view, they did not view it as a meritorious claim to be called out on for an air quality check. And that is, well, no, I will add this. Our front desk receptionist, Lanisha Hamilton, started work today, and we needed a place for her to work, which meant that she was going to be working at the front desk where, not my administrative assistant, excuse me, but my executive assistant for special projects had been working. Deanna Bremer Fisher is not and never has been a receptionist of the city. We put her there because we didn't have any other office space for her. I know that it has been desired by myself, by the city council, by the people of this community that we have a live person answering the phone again. We had worked with Laborers 860 to take the phone operator position out of the bargaining unit, put the janitor into the bargaining unit, and then recast the phone operator position as also a receptionist so that we have somebody who greets people at City Hall, who is at the front desk, whose job it is to be a receptionist. That person started today, which meant that we needed to have a space for that person to work today, which means that the person that was working that space needed a place to go today. And in fact, Deanna Bremer Fisher moved upstairs on Friday. We don't even have the actual desk that she will be working at. Right now, she's working at a folding table with a folding chair. And I appreciate her for working up there under those conditions. But the conditions are not unsafe. They're just temporary when it comes to that particular desk and that particular table. All of these things, indeed, are ephemeral and temporary because we really should be building a new city hall. We really should be building new municipal facilities. We've spent the last 2 years going on field trips instead of working with our consultant to actually get new municipal facilities done. We're going to hear in the executive session about how we're doing land acquisition over at Yabi. That's a matter of public record that we're seeking that. We're going to go over some of those things this evening. The land acquisition is a key part to the redo of municipal facilities. It is one of the next steps here. But in the meantime, we have a city to run. We have work that needs to be done. And work is done by people. And people need a place to work. And we are doing the best we can with what we have to work with. We've taken a room that hasn't held a public meeting in almost 5 years, that already had 3 people working in it, and now there are going to be 4 people working in it. And that isn't a scandal. And it isn't demolition, it's simply making do with what we have. Thank you. Mr. Robb.
All right, I want to ask a few questions for clarification. Since the phone operator / receptionist / door greeter is starting today, is City Hall now open for business, or is it still locked?
The City Hall has always been open for business.
So can I visit without an appointment?
Can I answer your question or no? Yeah, thank you. The City Hall has been open basically ever since the CDC has allowed us to be open, and we've had people there. Now, if you're asking me, is the door locked, and do we ask people to ring the doorbell, and do we buzz them in? Yes, we're still doing that. We've been doing that. That's a matter of security.
Okay, so the door remains locked at City Hall, correct?
It is locked at City Hall.
Okay, thank you.
And there is a door.
Next question is, Mr. Kennedy, how much do we pay in rent every month for the annex? Or maybe a year?
I would have to get back to that, Mr. Reck.
In the thousands, though, correct?
It's probably $1,200 a month,
$1,200 a month.
I can check.
It's a little more than that, I think, but yeah.
I'll check.
Okay, and how many open seats are available at the annex?
That depends on the day. Our HR works there, Mr. Kennedy works there, Mrs. Drucker works there. Sometimes I work there. It really just depends on the situation.
I believe there are 3 open spaces there. So I would like to discuss, when we could go through our upcoming budget cycle, whether we continue to pay $1,200 plus whatever it is a month in rent, if we clearly aren't using it, there's only one employee that sits in that space full time. Other employees go there to get away from the toxic workplace at City Hall, I'm sure, but there is only one dedicated workspace in that building. And there are room for 3 others, and there is a private conference room which could be used as an office. So to say there was no place to put Ms. Bremer Fisher is inaccurate. The city owns houses that we have people working in for the building department, for Fire Prevention Bureau, for the detectives. We own other homes. We use them for storage. We have this annex. We have office space. So for you to say there was no place to put your executive assistant is inaccurate.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brown. We do use the conference room at the annex. It is our only ADA compliant office and conferencing space in the entire city. And during labor negotiations, yes, we had laborers 860 meetings in that conference room. It was a little small, it was a little tight, and we had a member of the negotiation team who would not be able to take the steps at City Hall. And that's why we have space like that, in order to accommodate people who are unable to access the 1925 era building with the 1960s side door, main door renovation, where you walk in the door and the first thing you have is a stairwell that if you're mobility impaired, you're unable to navigate. As the chief executive and chief administrative officer of the city, I believe I have the right to assign people to spaces throughout the building. The people that are on my most immediate and direct staff are people I'd rather have within the building. Indeed, I'd rather Ms. Fisher would still be on the same floor as me, but there simply is no other space on the first floor of the building. So we have moved her upstairs. That is the next closest place that Ms. Fisher could go. So that is where she is. If you're mayor, you can assign people to other spaces one day. The finance office used to be in the building where the building department and the housing department are. The finance department could be located someplace else. We haven't decided to do that. I believe it's better to have the finance office within the confines of City Hall. But, I didn't view moving the finance department off the first floor of City Hall as being an alternative I was interested in. So that said, there was no other place on the first floor of City Hall, and that is what motivated having space converted upstairs. Thank you. Mrs. Sanders.
Thank you. A quick question for Ms. Bremer Fisher. So you don't greet people at the door that just buzzed in and then they just come in? Is that up until today? When people come to the door, whoever, is it you that buzzes them in or someone else up until today, before today?
Well, it depends if I was sitting there and the buzzer rang, of course, I'd buzz
And then
people
you
in.
sit there and people come in, right?
And then people come in, yes.
I mean, when you buzzed me in, you came up around and you stood in front of the stairwell and said, well, what are you doing here? How can I help you? And I had to skirt around you. It was very unusual. So, anyways, it felt unusual. As if you didn't want me to go upstairs.
Is there a question there?
That was the question, and you answered it, and I'm just giving you my impression. Thank you. And just for the record, Mayor, yes, the quality of the air was checked weeks after the tile was disrupted and covered up. And it wasn't because you called it, it was because an anonymous person called the County Board of Health. So I want that for the record. And then I'm just wondering, I have the floor.
Yeah, you do.
And I'm so glad that at that point at least, things seem to settle down and the quality of the air is fine. But I guess a rhetorical question is, if you can do whatever you want throughout the building, including demolish reconstruct whatever, where does it end? And I just leave that there. Where does it end? And with no notification to anyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else anybody would like to say at this juncture? Mr. King.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to quickly respond to Mr. Rock regarding the need for the annex. I look at that, I mean, we are using it today, but I look at that as a strategic space, especially as we look forward to building new facilities for the city. We are definitely going to need that office space when we do move forward with new facilities. When we do go to review the budget for next year, I think that $1,200, continuing to invest that per month would be very prudent to keep that strategic area near the confines of all the other city facilities. And we're at 41 minutes on this topic now. Thanks.
It's an
Very good. Thank you, Mr. King. Mrs. Sachs?
I think you'd want to know that was done to the only space in the building for legislative meetings. I've had meetings, I met Mr. Pokorny, maybe not public meetings, but meetings to conduct council business. One Mr. Rock mentioned, and then Mr. Pokorny went up to Mrs. Thomas. I've gone periodically. I use that space, no more. So I think it is important. Any time something like that is done, I think, unless you knew about it, maybe you knew about it. I didn't know anything about it. I came upon it. Maybe you knew all about it. So I don't know, but it's not something that you think people, the taxpayers, should know, or all of us should know. It's our place. That's all. I wouldn't minimize that. 41 minutes or 41 hours. It would have taken 41 seconds for the mayor to just inform people through an email or public meeting, a comment, but it's absent. Radio silence. Thank you.
Now, during the pandemic, I rearranged my office. I moved the desk that Mayor Linfeld had closer to the door. The conference table used to be closer to the window. And then I came in one weekend and I moved the conference table to the other side of the office. And I moved my desk to the other side where the conference table had been. And it never occurred to me that I needed to send a memo to City Council that I rearranged my office. So, and I did that and still do that because I use that conference table for meetings for want of other conference space that's convenient and nearby. We don't have very many options when it comes to meeting space in the main city hall building. I grant that. It was built in 1925 for a village of a few hundred people. It simply is out of time with where we are as a city government of a city of nearly 14,000 people. We have people in the city hall, we got people in the police department, in the fire department, in a house across the parking lot for building and housing, and another house by the park for the detective bureau, and yet another house by the park for the fire prevention bureau and the fire administration. And then we have the one modern accessible space over in the plaza, where we have the economic development department, the human resources management department, and we have finance that holds meetings over there. We have building and housing that holds meetings over there. The building and housing building is not ADA compliant. Meetings are frequently held over there. We do what we can with the diffuse and spread out city hall campus that we have. And it just seems, I simply don't know what to say about the fixation that Mrs. Sachs has on a room that she never had a public meeting in, and views it as some kind of affront that we are simply trying to do the best we can with the space that we have. Now, one of the things that Ms. Fisher went over is the historic use of the room and the desire to preserve the room where we have workspaces that have movable walls that are freestanding, that aren't bolted into the wall. You know, we're not trying to change the character of the room overall. And if we find, as time goes on through the process for creating new municipal facilities, if we find that we want to restore that building for some historic use, then we don't have to undo the damage that was done by having office space up there, because we do it in a way that doesn't create damage. We have freestanding office spaces where Mrs. Thomas works, where Ms. Drayton works, where our interns have worked, and now where Ms. Fisher's going to work. And we are still going to have some space up there for spillover conference space. So that is all in the works here. I, for one, am happy that we have a front desk receptionist who has started today, who's going to be answering the phones once we onboard her and give her all the training she needs with regard to the various roles of the various departments, and be able to answer the door, and whose job it is to be there to greet people, direct traffic, answer phone calls, and better serve people of this community, which everybody here should be in favor of. And that shouldn't be controversial. Thank you. Ms. Weiser.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. King, how many minutes are we at now?
46.
Thank you. Mrs. Sachs, Mayor, could you both agree to end the discussion here so that we could move on to other business? And Mayor, with all due respect, a simple email might have prevented this 46-minute discussion. And I know sometimes one decides, we're going to go do it, we'll go do it. And one doesn't think of any connection between space and a group. And I recognize that. But sometimes that 2-minute email can eliminate all of this in advance. So if the two of you would agree to stop the discussion, I think Mr. King has a good point and we can move on.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. Is there anything else anybody would like to say? Very good. Next item is item F, ordinance 2023-55, authorizing the mayor to enter into a service agreement with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation for mobile wellness programming services for the University Heights Fire Department and declaring an emergency. This is on emergency. Chief Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is about firefighter wellness. We've talked about it a few times during these meetings. Dating back to around 2013, we applied for a FEMA grant and were awarded money towards establishing a wellness program. That program is through the International Association of Firefighters and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. They developed a wellness fitness initiative. It consists of 6 main components. We've worked through the years to incorporate that into the bargaining unit. We have a program in there that follows that. One of the components in there is medical exams. In May of 2022, the governor had put out $70 million of ARPA funding dedicated to first responder recruitment, retention, resilience, with a focus on wellness and behavioral health. The fire department applied for a grant in the amount of $204,600, and we were awarded that grant to bolster our existing program. So part of that grant money is to apply for these medical exams that are NFPA compliant. We went to council back in December of 2022 to get approval to accept this grant. And then we came back to you August 15th of this year to go out to bid for the medical exams. We received 2 bid proposals. One was from a company, BioCare. They're out of Michigan. They're able to fulfill the majority of the proposal. However, the stress test and calcium scoring was not able to be performed inside their mobile unit, so we would have to make an arrangement to conduct those testing elements through their company. And then the second proposal was through Cleveland Clinic. They're At Work Health, which coincidentally was the company that did it out of the 2013 grant. The Cleveland Clinic proposal is slightly more, however, it does have the stress test and calcium scoring on site, all in one place. While we didn't require it, they also have a medical directorship program, which we would benefit from. Both proposals were reviewed by the fire department and the law department. The law director made a recommendation to seek if there was any further contract. We did get clarification that the proposal before us is what they have, and then we would sign up within a portal to complete our registration with the clinic so that we could start scheduling our firefighters. So I request council approval so that the mayor can enter an agreement with the Cleveland Clinic to conduct these medical exams.
Thank you, Chief. Is there a motion to authorize this ordinance on emergency? So moved. Motion by Mr. Cooney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Marshall. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, Ms. Weiser.
Chief, I noticed in what you sent us that the clinic also offers cancer screening as well. I know for firefighters, there was an initiative that was generated by a firefighter who died from brain cancer in Beechwood. And his brother, I think, I don't know, he may have been in our program with you when we were going through. Is that screening, will that also cover things like that as well? Because I know that you are all at risk for a higher level or a higher risk of cancer.
That's true, and it does. So did the BioCare proposal. However, the Cleveland Clinic proposal did have a more robust cancer screening. It did test for more variety of different types of cancer.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions? We'll take two votes. The first is on the suspension of the rules. Mrs. Thomas?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
And on the main motion?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is item G, a motion to accept the 2023-2024 Ohio EMS Priority 1 grant. Chief?
Thanks, Mayor. Each year, fire department applies for this grant. We are typically awarded. This year, we applied and received $3,015.52. The award has no matching costs. Usually, we focus spending this money on equipment associated with our active shooter, active threat response towards ballistic vests, ballistic helmets. Those do have an end-of-life cycle, so we use this to primarily bolster the replacement of those items, and then whatever cash flow we have available, we get remaining associated medical equipment to support the medical supplies that we carry when we're responding to those types of incidents.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Bricker? And if not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Weiser. Is there a
Second.
Second by Mr. King. Any discussion? Seeing by Mrs. Thomas, we call the vote.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Very good, motion carries. Next is item H, a motion to approve the purchase of a fire prevention staff vehicle. Chief Burko, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. Each fall, we go through a vehicle evaluation process. This coincides with our 5-year capital improvement plan. When we established that plan, we put in a grading system for each vehicle, and that's how we start to establish a life cycle and replacement schedule for fire apparatus and other equipment. In our existing 5-year schedule, we had called out for the replacement of a staff vehicle, one that is primarily used for fire prevention. This vehicle has been plagued with a number of maintenance issues. We've been trying to put just the minimal amount of money into it to make it safe to drive on the road. Our service department has looked at it annually and advised to not take it out of the city. So we've been using it kind of in a limited basis. This vehicle is a 2007 Jeep Cherokee with about 107,000 miles on it. The recent report from our third-party mechanic came back that the vehicle is unsafe to drive, so we've placed it out of service. They've provided a list in the packet here of some of the items that they can see it needs to be drivable, which is just on the surface. They did say that, once they got into it, there could be some more items. We just feel that putting that kind of money into a vehicle that is literally rotting away would not be the best use of tax dollars. So we do not plan to put this vehicle back in service or put any money into repairs. Is also unable to pass the e-check. This year we were budgeted $80,000 in capital equipment purchases. Out of that money, we've spent $33,600 on mobile radios that were approved earlier this year, leaving a balance of $46,400 in that account. We had planned to use those funds for a cardiac monitor and some structural firefighting turnout gear this year. After further discussion about the end of the year equipment needs and future budget plans, we were talking about the purchase of the new ambulance and other associated equipment that will need. We did plan on rolling needed equipment into the cost of the ambulance. Things like a stretcher and the mounting system that the stretcher goes into, since that gets the hardware bolted directly into the ambulance. We prefer to have the manufacturer do things like that. So we were looking at taking the cost of the cardiac monitor that we plan to purchase this year and rolling that into the cost of the ambulance. We can afford to wait on the delivery of that cardiac monitor until we receive a new ambulance. And then also on the structural firefighting gear, due to all the supply chain issues last year, we were able to get a heavily discounted rate on the turnout gear at the end of the year. So we were able to buy some of additional sets that we would have needed to buy this year, freeing up money this year. So in other words, we found a mechanism where we would not need to spend money from the capital fund on a cardiac monitor or turnout gear, freeing up this $46,400. The vehicle that we would look to purchase would be consistent with what is in our fleet currently, other surrounding departments. It's another Ford Explorer. It would be a 2023 through the state Ohio bid program out of Montrose Ford. That vehicle is $43,295.68. We would have it outfitted from a company that we've used for many years, Hall Public Safety. They would outfit it at the cost of $7,193.16. This would be for lights, sirens, installation of mobile communication radios and other equipment. And then a decal package from Auto Trim out of Cleveland for $690 just to identify it, put some reflective striping on it, for a total cost of $51,178.84. So that leftover capital funding would cover all but $4,778 of the purchase.
Okay, thank you, Chief Perko. Could you state that number one more time so we all have
$51,178.84.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Perko? Mrs. Weiss.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Two questions. One is, you are outfitting the truck because you sometimes take it on calls, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you're still doing it. And the other thing is, didn't we ask that the cardiac monitor be portable? That's the reason that we were ordering it. It wasn't for the ambulance, I thought.
All the cardiac monitors are portable.
But didn't we want one in the firehouse? Wasn't that the goal of it?
We wanted to create one that was a reserve.
Right.
We have two now, one for each ambulance. So they go down that wasn't an AED. So we do have an AED to defibrillate somebody if we needed to in an emergent cardiac arrest. What the AED cannot do that a cardiac monitor can do is do a 12-lead EKG, something that you may see like in a doctor's office, so that we can determine if someone's having a heart attack or not.
And how much is a standalone cardiac monitor?
About $42,000.
And the goal would be, I'll tell you where I'm coming from. We have an unexpected ODOT return, right? We're getting a refund.
We should, but I have not been able to confirm that yet. But yes.
And what's the lead time on ordering
The cardiac monitor, I would have to check.
that? So you're not sure if it
I'm
would
not sure.
take a long time like a vehicle would take?
It seems anymore with any of the equipment, it can change by the day.
And
I would estimate it would be at least a couple months.
And you would, if you couldn't order it this year, you would put it in the budget for next year.
The cardiac monitor? Depending on what we did tonight, I would put it as a proposal to package it with the new ambulance.
So if you package it with the new ambulance, then we're still left with no standalone unit in the firehouse, correct?
Well, we're I guess jumping ahead a little bit. If we went that route with packaging it with the ambulance, I was going to discuss with finance first about doing a blanket PO for the ambulance, and then we would have the ambulance manufacturing company, we would bill everything to them. So to outfit the ambulance, mobile radios, cardiac monitors, stretchers, everything would be billed to the ambulance company. And as we purchase those items, we would spend down that PO so that we're not basically having the ambulance company finance our equipment.
Right, well, we would still be short a cardiac monitor, which was our goal, to have a standalone unit.
I believe if we went that route, we could just purchase the monitor then next year out of that PO.
So you're essentially increasing the PO for 2 cardiac monitors?
Just a
You-
There was never one included in the
There was
cost.
never one included in the ambulance?
Correct.
But I don't know, maybe.
If I may, the cardiac unit that would be purchased with the ambulance, it's not built into the ambulance and can't be taken out. It's adding one to the other 2 that we already have that may be in the ambulances but can be taken out of the ambulances. Is that right?
That's correct.
I understand that. But
Okay.
I understand that, but it's not a standalone, and I know that you've mentioned many, many times that people actually come to the fire department with issues, that sometimes you have to transport them to the hospital, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we would just.
Is your goal to have a standalone cardiac monitor in the firehouse, not in a vehicle?
This idea originally came out of COVID when we put a 3rd squad into service and started using that old squad. We really needed a 3rd monitor then, and there were some light discussions about that, but with the money that we had available, we prioritized for the PPE since we didn't have any strategic stockpile on hand. And this was just kind of carryover for that. We did buy AEDs with some of that money, which was sufficient because that's the more urgent and immediate use in the cardiac realm of things. So we wanted to have that unit available on the ladder truck and then as a backup piece for our ambulances. But if someone did walk in today, assuming both ambulances are in quarters, we would just put them into one of the ambulances and start definitive care in there and transport them.
How often do you not have both ambulances in quarters? Frequently?
Not very often. It's dependent. You know, this ambulance we're replacing is aging, so the last time it was out of service, it was a number of months, I believe, a couple months. So then the first out ambulance is out all day, every day. So in that instance, when that other ambulance was out of service, you know, it was out for a long period of time. But to your point, we strip a lot of equipment out when a vehicle goes out for service, so that monitor was there and available.
Thank you.
This is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. Go on, Mr.
I was saying this is kind of a contingency with also a redundant use to put it on the ladder until we have a new ambulance, but it's also part of a replacement program for the monitor itself, because both of ours are reaching their life expectancy age, and they're only 1 year apart. Without looking, I think one was purchased in 2017 and one in 2018.
And what's their life expectancy?
Roughly 10 years, depends.
Thank you. Okay. I guess I'm just confused now because I remember it a little differently. I thought we did not approve the extra heart monitor, the reserve, correct?
We didn't originally, but in this current budget, we didn't approve the
The
extra
reserve.
one.
The
However,
reserve.